I never thought it would come to this. I've always believed that loyalty was everything in a relationship. You know that there are good women out there, ones who stand by you through thick and thin. That's what I thought I had with Lisa. She was my rock, my constant, the woman I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But there's always that nagging fear, right? The one we push to the back of our minds. The fear that one day things could go wrong and the life you've built might come crashing down. Still, I trusted her completely. I had no reason to doubt her. My friends would joke about bad women who step out on their men, but I brushed it off. Not Lisa, I'd tell them. She wasn't like that. I was certain. That was my belief. A belief that kept me going. A belief that loyal women existed. That happiness with the right person could last forever. Sure, I wasn't perfect. Maybe I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, career-wise or financially. And yeah, there were times when I felt like I wasn't the guy I wanted to be. But with Lisa, I thought I had a chance at happiness. I had dreams that we'd be together through everything, grow old together. But now, looking back, there were signs, little things I ignored. Maybe because I didn't want to see them. Maybe because I was too wrapped up in my own belief bubble. Lisa could never do something like that, right? Not to me. At least that's what I thought. It all started with something I never expected. A casual conversation with my neighbor. You know how neighbors are. You exchange small talk, share a wave when taking out the trash. That's all it ever was between us. But one day, out of the blue, he pulled me aside with this weird look on his face. I didn't know what to make of it. He hesitated, which only made me more curious. Then, in a low voice, he said, "Look, man, I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but you need to know I've seen Lisa with someone else." Just like that, my heart dropped. I tried to play it off, laugh it away like it was a joke. "What do you mean?" I asked, still half believing he'd say something that made sense. But he didn't. He went on, describing how he'd seen her with some guy at odd times, coming in and out of the house when I wasn't home, acting way too comfortable with each other. It was like my whole world froze. I felt this mix of anger and confusion, but mostly disbelief. There was no way Lisa, my Lisa, could be doing that. Not to me. I remember standing there, nodding like I was hearing him, but my mind was racing. What was he saying? Was this some kind of misunderstanding? Maybe it was just a friend, a cousin, someone I didn't know about. But deep down, something in me clicked. I didn't want to admit it, but there was this gnawing feeling in my gut, something I had been pushing aside for a while. I didn't know what to say. I thanked him for telling me, but my mind was spinning. Could it really be true? I wanted to confront her right then and there, but at the same time, I needed proof. Something concrete. Because what if he was wrong? What if it was all a misunderstanding? I couldn't accuse her without knowing for sure. That's when the doubts really started. I couldn't shake them. Every moment I wasn't with her, every time she was late, every time her phone buzzed, I couldn't stop wondering, was my neighbor right? Was this happening right under my nose? After that conversation with my neighbor, I felt like I was living in some kind of nightmare. My mind was at war with itself. One part of me couldn't believe it. No, wouldn't believe it. There was no way Lisa could be cheating. It just didn't fit the picture I had in my head. She was loyal, trustworthy, always there when I needed her. How could she do something like this? But the other part of me, the part I'd been trying to ignore, was starting to whisper louder and louder. Little things that I had brushed off before now seemed suspicious. Those times when she was late coming home, the times when she was glued to her phone, the unexplained absences. Were those signs? Had I just been too blind to see it? I started replaying everything in my head, analyzing every conversation, every interaction we'd had over the last few months. I kept asking myself, how did I miss this? How could I not see it? It was like my mind was stuck in a loop, going over every detail again and again, trying to find some kind of explanation that made sense. But even as the evidence piled up in my mind, I still didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that the woman I loved, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, could betray me like that. So I clung to the possibility that it was all a misunderstanding, that my neighbor had it wrong, that maybe there was some innocent explanation for everything. At the same time, the doubt was eating away at me. Every time I saw her, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd look at her and wonder, is she lying to me? Is she hiding something? I wanted to ask her, to confront her right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. What if I was wrong? What if I accused her of something she didn't do? That would destroy everything. So I did nothing. I tried to act normal, but it was impossible. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every moment I was with her, I felt like I was on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I wasn't ready to accept the truth. Not yet. I couldn't hold it in anymore. The doubt, the sleepless nights, the constant replaying of every little thing Lisa did, it was driving me crazy. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. So one evening, I sat her down. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "Lisa," I said, "we need to talk." She looked at me, surprised at first, but then something shifted in her expression, almost like she knew what was coming. I could feel my stomach twist. I told her what the neighbor had said, how I'd been hearing things, and I asked her straight out, "Is there someone else?" For a second, she just stared at me, like she was deciding what to say. And in that moment, I was clinging to this tiny hope that she would laugh it off, tell me it was all a misunderstanding, that the neighbor was wrong. I wanted her to say that everything was fine, that she'd never do something like that to me, but she didn't. Instead, her face fell, and I saw the truth in her eyes before she even said a word. She couldn't deny it. She didn't even try, and that's when it hit me, like a punch in the gut. The truth I'd been running from. The truth I didn't want to believe. "Yes," she said quietly. Just one word. But that was all it took to shatter everything I thought I knew. My world came crashing down right then and there. All the trust, the love, the loyalty I believed in, it was gone in an instant. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Who?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. And when she said it, "Jake, my trainer." It was like the final nail in the coffin. Jake, the guy I knew, the guy I'd seen at the gym with her, the guy I never thought twice about. My blood boiled. I wanted to scream, to yell, to ask her why, how she could do this to me. But instead, I just sat there, staring at her, my mind numb. I couldn't process it. The woman I thought I'd grow old with, the woman I trusted with my life, had been cheating on me, and now it was all out in the open. Everything I believed about her, about us, was a lie. She tried to explain, to tell me how it started, how she didn't mean for it to happen, but I couldn't hear it. All I could think was that she betrayed me. Everything else was just noise. I got up, walked out of the room, and left her sitting there. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't stay in the same room with her, not after what she had just told me. And that was the moment my entire world changed. After that night, everything felt different. It wasn't just about Lisa anymore, it was about me. I couldn't stop thinking, what does this say about me? It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt, it was what it did to my sense of self. I started questioning everything. Why wasn't I enough? What did Jake have that I didn't? The thing is, I've always had these insecurities lurking beneath the surface. Sure, I'd put on a strong front, but deep down, I've never really felt like I measured up. I wasn't making the kind of money I wanted to. I didn't have the status I thought I should have had by now. And when it came to relationships, I'd always struggled. Lisa was the one person who made me feel like I was worth something, like I was enough. But now I felt like I was right back where I started, like I was just some guy who wasn't good enough. The fact that she cheated with someone like Jake, this fit, confident trainer, only made it worse. It was like a confirmation of every doubt I'd ever had about myself. Maybe I wasn't attractive enough. Maybe I wasn't successful enough. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough to hold on to someone like Lisa. It was like all the failures I'd experienced in the past were coming back to haunt me. Every relationship that hadn't worked out, every time I felt like I didn't measure up, it all hit me at once. I started to wonder if this was just who I was. Maybe I was always destined to be the guy who wasn't enough, the guy who gets cheated on, the guy who loses. I'd look at myself in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. All I could see was someone who wasn't good enough. And no matter how hard I tried to shake it, that feeling just wouldn't go away. After everything came out, the days just blurred together. I was a mess. Emotionally, mentally, even physically. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see them together. The thoughts kept looping in my head, like a broken record that wouldn't stop. What had I missed? How long had this been going on? Was she with him when I thought everything was fine between us? The heartbreak hit me in waves. 1 minute, I was furious, angry at Lisa, angry at Jake, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. The next minute, I was numb, like I couldn't feel anything at all. I'd just sit there, staring at nothing, wondering how the life I thought I had could fall apart so quickly. It felt like everything I believed in had been ripped away from me. The future I had planned with Lisa, the trust we had built, the love I thought was unbreakable. It was all gone. I couldn't even look at her without feeling this deep, aching pain in my chest, like someone had physically ripped my heart out. It wasn't just about losing her. It was about losing everything we were, everything we could have been. But the worst part was the questions, the what-ifs that wouldn't leave me alone. What if I had been a better partner? What if I had noticed the signs earlier? What if I could have done something, anything, to stop this from happening? The guilt was unbearable, even though I knew deep down this wasn't my fault. And then there was the love. As much as I hated her for what she did, as much as I wanted to walk away and never look back, there was still a part of me that loved her. That was the hardest part. I loved someone who had broken me, and I didn't know how to let go of that. I wasn't ready to heal, wasn't ready to move on. How could I, when the person I had built my life around had shattered everything? I felt like I was drowning in my own emotions, anger, sadness, confusion, love, and betrayal all swirling around me, pulling me under. And no matter what I did, I couldn't escape it. I wasn't ready to heal because I was still caught in the chaos, still trying to make sense of a situation that made no sense at all. After the dust settled a bit, I found myself facing the question I never thought I'd have to ask. Should I stay or should I leave? It was like this constant tug of war in my head. On one hand, she had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I knew that staying would mean living with the memory of her cheating, the trust that had been shattered, and the doubt that would always linger. How could I ever look at her the same way again? But on the other hand, the thought of leaving terrified me. I'd spent years with Lisa, building a life, sharing moments, creating memories. Walking away meant leaving all of that behind, starting over from scratch. And as much as I hated to admit it, the idea of being alone scared me. What if I couldn't find anyone else? What if I spent the rest of my life alone, wondering what could have been? I kept going back and forth in my mind. There were moments when I thought, I can do this. I can forgive her. We can rebuild. But then, almost immediately, I'd feel this wave of anger and pain, and I'd think, no way. I deserve better. I need to leave. It was exhausting. I was stuck in this cycle of doubt, never sure which path was the right one. Friends and family tried to help, offering their opinions. Some said I should stay, that relationships can be repaired, that people make mistakes. Others told me I needed to leave, that I'd never truly heal if I stayed in a broken relationship. But none of their advice could make the decision for me. It had to come from me, and I wasn't ready to make that call. The truth was, both options terrified me. Staying meant living with the betrayal, and leaving meant facing the unknown. And right now, I wasn't sure which one I feared more. After everything that happened, I knew I couldn't go through this alone. So I did what most people do when their world falls apart. I reached out to friends and family, hoping they'd have some sort of answer, or at least help me make sense of it all. But even their support didn't make things any clearer. Some of my friends were furious on my behalf. How could she do that to you? They'd say. You deserve so much better. You need to get out of there. And in those moments, their anger fueled my own. It made me feel justified, like leaving was the only option. But as soon as I'd hang up the phone, the doubt would creep back in. Was leaving really the answer? Would walking away from years of history and memories really make things better? Then there were the others, the ones who told me that maybe I should try to work it out. They'd say things like, people make mistakes, and if she's truly sorry, maybe you can rebuild. I'd listen, but deep down, I wasn't sure if that was even possible. Could I ever truly forgive her? Could I ever look at her without seeing what she did? My family was the same way, split down the middle. My mom, bless her heart, just wanted me to be happy, no matter what that looked like. She'd say, only you know what's right for you. But even that didn't help much, because the truth was, I didn't know what was right for me. I was still too caught up in the pain, too lost in the mix of emotions to see things clearly. And the thing is, no matter how much support they offered, no matter how much advice they gave, I realized they couldn't make this decision for me. I was still stuck in my own head, still unsure about whether to stay or leave. Their words helped, sure, but at the end of the day, I knew this was something I'd have to figure out on my own. After weeks of being stuck in this emotional whirlwind, something started to shift. It wasn't anything dramatic, no big moment of clarity or instant change. It was more like a slow, quiet realization that, regardless of what happened with Lisa, I needed to start taking care of myself. I was tired of feeling broken, tired of the constant questions, the doubts, the self-blame. I realized that if I stayed in this cycle, I'd never get my life back. I couldn't let what she did define me. So, I made the decision to focus on myself for once, to find my own strength outside of this relationship, outside of the pain. It started small. I'd go for long walks just to clear my head. I picked up old hobbies I had let slide, things that made me feel like myself again. I started reading more, going to the gym, and focusing on my career. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the heartbreak would hit me all over again, but I could feel a shift happening. Slowly, I was starting to take back control. One of the biggest things I realized was that healing wasn't about pretending the pain didn't exist. It was about acknowledging it, facing it head on, and still finding a way to move forward. I couldn't change what Lisa did, but I could change how I reacted to it, how I let it shape my life moving forward. I was still hurt, still angry at times, but those emotions didn't control me the way they used to. I wasn't defined by what had happened anymore. I was finding my strength in the little things, and I was starting to feel more like myself. And that was enough for now. I didn't have all the answers yet, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path. Just when I thought I was finally finding my balance, life threw me another curveball. I met someone new. Her name was Sarah. It wasn't planned, and honestly, I wasn't even looking for anyone at the time. We met through mutual friends, and at first, it was casual, just conversations here and there, nothing serious. But the more we talked, the more I realized there was something different about her. Sarah was kind, easygoing, and made me laugh in a way I hadn't in months. She didn't know much about my past, and that was refreshing. It felt like a clean slate. But as much as I was drawn to her, I couldn't help but feel cautious. I was still raw from everything with Lisa, and the idea of opening myself up to someone again, it terrified me. I kept wondering, what if this goes the same way? What if I trust her and she ends up hurting me too? I didn't want to go through that kind of pain again. But at the same time, there was this voice in the back of my mind telling me that not everyone is the same, that maybe I could give this a chance, even if it scared me. So I decided to take things slow. We started hanging out more, but I kept my guard up. I didn't let her in too quickly, and I was careful with how much I shared. It wasn't because I didn't like her. I did. But after everything with Lisa, I felt like I had to protect myself. Trust didn't come easily anymore. Every time she'd say something kind or thoughtful, I'd have this moment of doubt. Was it genuine? Or was it just like before? But Sarah, she was patient with me. She didn't push, didn't try to rush things. She seemed to understand that I needed time. And slowly, I started to let my guard down, piece by piece. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I'd question whether I was ready to be with someone again. But Sarah was different. She made me want to believe that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for me to find happiness with someone new. With Sarah, things were different. Slowly, I found myself wanting to trust again, but it wasn't easy. Every time I'd get close to her, there was still this voice in my head reminding me of the past. The betrayal, the heartbreak, it wasn't something I could just forget. It was always there, lurking in the background, reminding me to be cautious. But Sarah, she was patient. As time went on, I started to notice that I was changing too. I wasn't the same person who had been shattered by Lisa's betrayal. I was stronger now, more aware of my own worth. And that's when it hit me. Rebuilding trust wasn't just about trusting Sarah, it was about trusting myself. Trusting that I could make better choices, that I was capable of loving and being loved again. Sarah didn't pressure me. She understood that I had scars, that I needed time to heal properly. She didn't demand more than I could give, and somehow that made me want to open up more. Little by little, I let her into my life. I started sharing parts of myself I had kept locked away, my insecurities, my fears, the pain I'd been through. And she listened. She didn't judge or make me feel weak for still carrying that weight. She made me feel safe. It wasn't a fairy tale, though. There were moments when I'd pull back, scared that history would repeat itself. But Sarah would gently remind me that we weren't my past. We were something new, something different. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The walls I'd built around my heart started to come down slowly but surely. I wasn't rushing into anything, and I knew that it would take time to fully trust again. But I also realized that real love, healthy love, doesn't demand you to be perfect. It allows you to be vulnerable, to have moments of doubt, and still choose each other. I wasn't fully healed yet, I knew that much. But with Sarah, I wasn't trying to rush the process. I wasn't looking for someone to fix me. I was simply letting myself love again, piece by piece. And in doing so, I found something I hadn't expected, a new kind of happiness, one built on trust, patience, and understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. As time passed, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the endless nights of questioning myself. Those moments still crossed my mind, but they didn't haunt me the way they used to. I wasn't the same person I was when all of this started. I had grown, changed, and most importantly, I had healed. I realized that justice, in the end, didn't come from getting back at Lisa or seeing her suffer. It came from my own healing, from the strength I found in moving forward. I heard through mutual friends that things didn't exactly work out for her and Jake. Part of me expected to feel some kind of satisfaction, some validation that what goes around comes around. But when I heard it, I didn't feel much of anything. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. It was just what it was. I had moved on, and that was the real justice. Looking back, I understood something that I hadn't before. Healing wasn't about forgetting the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It was about facing it, letting it shape me, and coming out stronger on the other side. Lisa's betrayal, it hurt me, but it didn't break me. I was still here. I had learned how to rebuild, how to trust again, how to find happiness on my own terms. And then there was Sarah. Meeting her taught me that love could still exist after heartbreak. It wasn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who made me feel safe, who accepted me with all my flaws, and who understood that healing takes time. With her, I learned that love can be different, built on patience and mutual respect. It was something I hadn't had before, and it made me realize just how much I'd grown. I'm not saying I have all the answers now. Life isn't perfect, and there are still moments where doubt creeps in. But I've learned to trust myself again. I've learned that I deserve happiness, that I'm capable of building a life that's strong and meaningful, even after everything that happened. In the end, I found peace, not just with what Lisa did, but with myself, and that's what matters. Life goes on, and so do we.